Hello everyone and welcome to episode 51 of Podcast of Five Rings, your source of enlightenment in the realm of video games, tabletop, anime, film, and tech. Each episode of Podcast of Five Rings releases Monday mornings on iTunes, SoundCloud, and topic by topic, day by day on YouTube, with the full video releasing on Friday. Catch updates about the podcast or for other news, give us a follow on your social media platform of choice, listed in the description below. I'm your host, GM, and overseer of Podcast of Five Rings, Obsidian, joined tonight by the wall that will not fall, Tetsuo.
Hello.
His mic is working now.
Sure.
Yours should be the mic that will fail. That should be your actual nickname, intro name, tag, quote, whatever those things are called that we have. We are joined once again tonight by the Dark Fortune Duelist Meta.
Hi, it's been a while.
Who is it has been a while. Who's going tonight to see Infinity War? So guess what we're not talking about tonight? Infinity War. We're talking about tomorrow, and it's going to be on the show on this episode. So we're going to splice together two recordings. I've already seen it twice.
Seriously?
Yeah, I have.
Jesus.
Well, my buddy. Well, if you were here last week, you would have understood why, Meta. But no. Well, my buddy bought tickets for Sunday morning, and then I was a weak boy and caved in and wanted to see it Thursday night because I couldn't avoid the internet for 2 days. So I went and saw it late Thursday night.
Well, since we're talking about the story of how we went to see it, I bought tickets. Well, I went to see it Saturday morning, and I got there with my roommate, and we realized went into the scan because it was on my phone, and went to scan it or whatever to let us in. And they're like, "These were for yesterday," and so that sucked. But people at the front desk let us in anyway.
Oh, sweet. Well, there you go.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, you're just too busy doing your real life stuff, like planning a wedding.
It was just
and
too
stuff. Meta.
Yeah.
You asshole.
Hey, it's not my fault that
You proposed to your girlfriend.
Yeah, she said yes. I didn't think
Yeah.
she would, but she did it.
She called his bluff.
She called my bluff.
Yep.
So now here we are, and
and
I can't back out.
And I got the card. It is very cute. I got it today.
It is very cute.
Yeah,
The Final Fantasy
She's
sprites.
very happy with that. I can't back out now because now it's a power play, and we have to see who's really gonna commit.
Yep.
Can't get off Mr. Toad's Wild Red.
And we got the wild card, the resident one, in fact, Mao.
Yo.
So, I guess in light news, because we're not going to talk about this topic-wise, did you guys see that? They're releasing like a beginner's version of the FFG RPG.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did they say when it's going to come out?
Quarter 3.
Number 3 is all it says.
I assume Gen Con.
Yeah, that's probably what it means. I never know if August is quarter 2 or quarter 3. It's like right there because it's the 8th month.
Right.
So yeah, that's happening. I wonder what's different because I haven't followed any of the beta stuff. Like post what we played many months ago.
Yeah.
Honestly, I haven't followed much of the beta stuff either.
No idea what they changed since then either.
I think the last stuff I read was the Manus Clan stuff.
I'm gonna just stick with what I said so far. I do like the fact that it's not as swingy, even with the explosion system. But I really wish it wasn't all these die with all these different special sides and different combinations of things.
Well, that makes you a jerk, man.
It does.
I'm a jerk right there with you, buddy.
So thank God I thought I was alone.
You and me drinking the jerk Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
And we got a video game Hall of Fame that I didn't know existed. Meta's favorite
Yeah.
game of all time is in there.
I don't know if it's my favorite game of all time, but it's got to be one of my favorites. I can't have an all-time favorite. You couldn't do that.
John Madden Football?
Yes, that's actually my favorite game of all time.
I was going to say the space game. I don't even remember the name
Space
for it.
Force.
Oh my god. Well, let's go.
Actually,
no, you go ahead, Meta. Finish
No,
your,
I was
finish your
just about to
thought.
say I actually had what was it? I think it was Madden 97 or Madden
Oh my
87 for the Sega Genesis. I can't remember. It was like a Madden something. And I love the shit out of that game. That game was great.
Yeah,
No.
this is the 1988 version.
19.
No, dude, it's all about
Oh,
that Tecmo Bowl.
Tecmo Bowl 19. Let's. I gotta look it up now. 1988 Madden. Hold on, because it's not okay. It is not. It is not that version of the
You
game,
might
but
have
it's
had the
very
one.
clear. It's very close to it.
Aw. I don't think I started playing them until they were on like the PlayStation 2.
I think it was maybe it was 94. It might have been Madden 94. Yeah, I think it was Madden 94.
Why? How old were you?
I wasn't too young now.
He was a wee lad.
Yeah, it was on the Genesis.
I would have been
Yeah.
7.
I mean, well, I didn't play it in 94.
Oh, okay.
No, well, like my parents. Well, the thing was, my parents. My mom actually got as a present for my dad. Actually got him a Nintendo system, and later
The
on,
Nintendo?
yeah,
system?
the Nintendo, the original NES. And then later on, what ended up happening was that it kind of got passed on to me, but I also got really big into Sonic. So I got a Genesis, but what they did is they bought one of those packs. They're like, oh, it comes with the game too, because they did that shit back then as well.
Yep.
And it just so happened that Madden NFL 94 was the game that came with it. So if it's the one I'm thinking of, I'm fairly certain this is
All
the
of
one.
this could be completely false.
Yes, it could all be wrong, but there was a Madden. It was a Madden game. Yes, it was on the Genesis. Okay, never mind. So the story is as true as I cared it to be. And then I just happened to have the game, and I actually played it, and I actually enjoyed the shit out of that game. It was
Remember
very
the
fun.
32X?
I feel like the 32X didn't really do anything
No.
spectacular.
I remember I got the really bad Sonic game that was for it, and that was it. And I was that one that had like the chaotic skies, like the crocodile and the chameleon.
Genesis was really the peak for Sega, and then like Saturn did mad.
What
They tried to say
Dreamcast was good.
Dreamcast was great.
No
it
one
was
just
way
bought
ahead of
it.
its time. It was just ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Too expensive. That was really what killed it.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Let's get on
Who's first?
to topics.
Who's on first?
Meta just happens to be first, so you go ahead.
I just have to
We'll
be
just
first.
keep talking
So I
about-
told this story to lead into another story that has nothing to do with it.
Oh,
So
damn, I was hoping you could actually find a line.
I was like, I want to try this now. So, but the one thing about Madden NFL 94 that I do remember that was that the game was not very friendly to you. And it was actually
people
kind
just
of
died left and right.
die left and right. Which leads into my question for the day. No, Madden NFL was actually pretty easy to pick up for the most part, but it did actually have a lot of things that did make it more difficult later on that I didn't know about. And it's kind of looking back on it, I never really noticed it as a kid, but I didn't realize that was also very easy for me because I was cheesing the game a bit. If you played it, and if you play it legit, it's actually pretty difficult in certain fashions. It's a little janky too, like all of them are. That's never changed, thank God. EA, that you don't change.
Yeah.
But the difficulty of the game kind of brings us over to what I am going to ask, and I'm going to try to transition as best I can, is difficulty in tabletop games, video games, and board games. And more specifically, and this is where the transition dies, lethality in those games. I mean, you've got all these different lethalities, and we're talking about like, health pools and, like how easy is it to die, not to just like potentially losing all your health, but to some trick or trap. And, we've some of us have all played those games where it's like, you just play the game and then it's either you die or you live. And those are simple. But then you've got games like the old school, like Rogue, which, gave obviously spawn to Rogue type games and Rogue lights and stuff like that. But that game was very difficult, where if you died, it was for realsies and you started over and that was the end of it. And then you had, you have games like even are the ones that we've all met on, is like L5R is generally considered a very lethal game. It's very easy to quickly die in that game, or die a very slow death because your opponent keeps whiffing on you, but you can't hit them because you're a negative 40 a penalty. So,
or you just have that spell on you that doesn't let you die
yeah,
Until,
just that one spell.
until it
Yeah.
fades.
Or if you're a cheating heated berserker.
Hida awesome, I think you meant to say.
Yes, Hida awesome. The one rank 2 school attack that breaks like all normal conventions of the combat. And then you got games like I mean, it's changed over the years because obviously, like if you go back to like D&D Second Edition, THAC0, pretty easy to die in that game. First edition was also
Wizard died to a house cat.
Yep, wizards could die to house cats. It was actually better to
that
have
D4 hit points.
Kid you not, it was better to have an army of house cats than it was to have an army of peasants because the house cats were better. So you have games like that, but then you have like ones nowadays where you've got like 5th edition where it's actually pretty generous in like how easy it is to die. It's actually considered pretty difficult for them. It's more balanced in that regard. And
4th was like I never saw a 4th edition character die.
A 4th I think is really hard to die unless you just get overrun, and I think that's really what it comes down to.
Healing surges were a thing.
Yep, healing surges were really strong. But I mean, then you've got games like 13th Age and so on and so forth. And then there's like board games out there that have health pools that is very easy to die in. Like if you've ever played the XCOM board game, it's very easy to get overwhelmed in that game if you've played it, because that game does not let you think on stuff. Shit happens, you have an app with it, and that app just says like, guess what? Aliens are invading. You need to save the planet, but everything is blowing up. What do you do? And it's like, well, Jesus Christ. I didn't sign up for this. But my question for you guys, and really the goal of it is that what is your ideal style of lethality? Not like the lethality that you like the best from a game, or the free to use ones that are similar to what your ideal is, but what is an ideal lethality that you like? What's the kind of game where, obviously, and I'm not gonna let you just answer, well, I want one that's fair. Let's say it feels like if you got killed, it felt fair. Don't give me that cop-out answer. Everybody wants a fair death. What I want to know is, how lethal do you want that game to be? Fairness, like in an ideal world, it's completely fair, but it was super lethal. You could die in like 2 hits. Or do you like a game where it's not easy to die, or it's kind of like goes a slugfest? What is your ideal?
I don't. It depends. I think that's kind of like a cop-out answer, but
damn it,
for video games, like it just depends on the type of game. To be honest with you, like I enjoy the super lethal nature of the Soulsborne series a lot, so maybe I like my video games pretty lethal.
Death is not a consequence in those games.
Yeah,
it's not necessary. Basically,
2 deaths in a row, quickly in procession, are a consequence. Potentially,
even then, not really. Like,
you don't like start over.
Yeah.
No, but most games, most video games play under that concept, though. Even if you might start over at the beginning of the level, you might have to load up your save file.
So whatever. Maybe in video games, maybe in video games, I like less lethality because I never do like no death runs of those games or any game really. We did just do the Nuzlocke, which was which is obviously like the lethal version of Pokemon, which I enjoyed quite profusely. In tabletop games, I don't like feelings like games where I feel invincible necessarily. I always like it where death is a possibility in most encounters. But at the same time, sometimes you even if when your character would die, sometimes the GM, for the sake of the story, will not kill the character off, etc., etc. So it has a time and a place, maybe, and that kind of just depends on the game too. But I appreciate more lethality because I like it when the characters feel really in danger because there's something at stake. Tensions are risen more than they normally are. It's always good when you feel worried for your character at the table a little bit. At least from my experience, that's what I like as a player. Anyways, going into a counter, I love the oh shit, we could die, the scene where the villain just hands the characters their asses on a platter. And it's you're not ready for this. Those kinds of scenes.
You like that stuff, okay?
Yeah, I like that kind of stuff. So I'll say I like a little bit more lethality than probably what you would consider your average or our cop out answer, but maybe not super brutal.
So you don't. So a game that would be where your health pool is maybe 1 or 2 hits is not a game that you would really want to be a part of because that's pretty lethal. You get
and that could even be L5R, which is my favorite RPG, but
it's even in L5R though. I know they say it's lethal, but even L5R, like 1 or 2 hits generally isn't lethal unless you just have really low health and you're being clearly placed off against somebody who's just going to hit
random
you.
you just get unlucky.
Yeah, or if you just get unlucky.
Fourth edition is the less lethal of all the editions. So.
Yeah, because they swapped it around. But I get what you're saying. You prefer the idea that like you can take a few hits before it really starts to creep in.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. What about you, Mo? What's your ideal lethality?
Ideally, I guess probably not very lethal. I tend to get attached to characters, and I like. I mean, you can have. I don't really care about death as a penalty. I mean, there are like other ways to have things go wrong without it being death, right?
Yeah.
Like you can still fail without it being death being the fail state. It's sort of like in comic books, you don't really ever expect the heroes to lose, but you still get an interesting story about how it affects them in other ways, even though they probably will come out of this, winning.
So you almost like excuse me. Because that it sounds almost like you prefer like where there's more of a so I mean the lethality question's answered. But you kind of like it also when it's less that the consequence is death and that there's a lot of philosophical or ethical or even potentially social consequences to that success or failure.
Correct.
That's pretty cool. I actually like those too. I actually like that a lot because I think
death isn't easy.
Yeah,
it's kind of a cop out in some ways.
Yeah, death is generally. I kind of agree with that. Like death is generally doesn't hold much. It's your character dies. It's like it sucks. I mean, if you put a lot of time into it and you're really attached to it, death can suck, hands down.
Right.
But
and I do hate death in that I get attached to characters.
Yeah.
But I find it more interesting for other consequences. I typically find just more interesting.
All right, that explains then.
Which is a more balance. Like it can be more difficult to like figure out what those should be. Like you have to know the characters and whatnot. And, like be like the story. Like have a greiter understanding of maybe the story.
Yeah, no, that's totally understandable.
What's the worst thing that can happen? You become a Ronin.
I mean, that explains like that. So then my question for you is because like that goes into like the fact that you say that you prefer less lethality because the lethality isn't so much what really matters to you and you get attached. So what drew you then to L5R? I know it's not really on the topic, but like what brought you to L5R then?
I'm a weeb.
No, okay. Okay, well that answers
But also the like at its core it typically is duty versus like duty versus personal attachments and stuff like that is a much more interesting story for me. Like a samurai is always willing to die. That's just expected of them. It's the conflicts that come from other things that is generally more
which would make sense because then again it goes back to like what you think is more interesting. So.
Yeah, the Nindo and Giri stuff.
Yeah.
What about
Ninja?
You, Tuts?
Sorry, not Naruto. The way of that's your ninja way.
It's Giri and gosh damn it. No, I'm see.
It's Ninjo and Giri.
Ninjo and Giri. Okay.
Nindo is my ninja way. Yes.
Yes. That's you're becoming a Hokage is your ninja way. So, no one's gonna stop you.
We've got one answer thus far of like I kind of like my games kind of lethal, and we got one answer that's like I don't want my games all that super lethal. What do you, Tats? We've got. Are you gonna find that middle ground to keep this balanced, or are you gonna shift it?
I'm gonna find the middle ground. But I think the reason why the middle ground is because truly folded into my answer. Like, I like there to be consequences of my actions, whether or not it's my character dies or my lord now, sends me to be Ronin or, whatever the case is, I like there to be consequences. And as far as lethality as the ultimate consequence to every single action, Not as much. That's partially why I'm not huge on the Dark Souls games.
I would argue lethality is not a consequence, more so than a lot of other games.
And I mean, like, I agree with what you're saying because it happens and it's something that's going to constantly come up. But at the same time,
and the fact that there's like no penalty other than
all that
maybe
sweet
some XP.
EXP.
My souls,
But
my
honestly-
blood.
Souls.
But I mean, it also probably helps that I come from more of an RPG background where dying could mean losing hours, whereas Dark Souls is not like that.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess too is the definition of consequences, because I mean it still is like it's teaching you through death. I guess
Right.
for me,
Generally, you get a lot of out of death in the Soulsborne games.
Yeah,
Just-
in
I
a
guess
tabletop game, it feels
narratively-
cheaper if that was like the thing. There's
I
not a lot of
think
games.
that's
There's
really
not
good
always
for
a lot of
me.
ways to resurrect your character in a tabletop RPG unless you're playing D&D.
I just narratively, I guess I'm not as much of a fan of death as a narration. Like it when used sparsely enough so that way it really hits home, and so therefore, like, I like there to be death involved, but enough where an actual death is going to mean a lot.
Okay.
Way Dark Souls also does it right because each death means a lot because it means I'm getting better. I guess it means a little, but ultimately it means a lot because it's a core piece of gameplay. So
I think I get
guess
what you're
for
trying
me,
to
my
say.
biggest thing is I like it where whatever the consequence is, it feels real and tangible. It's not Super Mario where you fall down the pit and start the level over again, and that's just kind of the end of the statement. Like, I like there to be more to the consequences than just do it again.
Okay.
Because in the case of Dark Souls, it's not just go do it again. It's I have to go recover my money / my experience. So there's still that in an RPG, it's if I die, I can't just go do it again. I have to go make a new character. So I think that's the big thing for me is it something that just resets the counter, or is it something that legitimately makes a difference?
Okay. Okay. So that makes sense then. I guess that's why I can see you put it in the middle of the road here, which is kind of funny. We've kind of got like a trifecta in here going on.
What about you, Meta?
For me, okay, well, I am probably going to be a little bit in between Obs and Tets because I mean, I actually like my games a little bit lethal. I know death isn't like it's not, death isn't the end all be all, and you can make a new character. But I like the game where, as Obs put it, I do like the idea that like when you are in a fight, knowing that you could just go into a fight could mean the end of your character in there. It's not like, oh, I go into this fight, it's like, it's the odds are like pretty much guaranteed I'm not going to die. I like the idea that when you go into a fight, there is a possibility you could die, and that's a thing. But I don't like it so much where a heavy lethality can instantly end your character. It doesn't even matter if you go in as it's like you could go in the odds like 15-1, and those odds really mean nothing because you could still die really easily. And I mean that kind of goes. I guess I'm copying on my own answer. Here I go. It goes into the fairness of it all, but I don't like that too much because it does feel a bit too lethal. For me, as Tets put, I like the idea that like when you go into a fight, that it should mean something, and that death should mean something. At least when it comes into the sense of a tabletop game, where if you have to make a new character. Because like you, Mao, I do tend to get a little bit attached to my characters. I do enjoy them. I make them for a reason because I think they're an interesting character that I would like to play as, and that for me is something I want to run the gambit of. I don't want it to be where I suddenly just go in and die to some random crab because he happened to snip me and he cut my vein and I bled out all over the place and I fumbled in the ability to put a band-aid on me or something like that. I don't want that. But I do want to know that the idea is that when I go into fight. So the lethality of me is I kind of want it lethal, but not so much that everything is lethal. It shouldn't be like that. Because there is a point where certain things just aren't as lethal to you anymore. They really just aren't. They fall out of that lethal range. They just turn into threatening, but probably not going to kill you. And there's just a point where that happens. For video games, though, I gotta admit, man, I really like the Dark Souls Neo style of lethality. At least when it comes to like how your health bar is and whatnot being killed. But those games are generally pretty rock solid when it comes to the gameplay and when it comes to the fairness of that death. So again, that goes back to being fairness. I'm copying out my own answers.
You'll know why you died when you die in one of those games.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's I like that kind of thing. I enjoy them. I revel in those challenges. I really do. Those bring me a lot of enjoyment, and knowing that like when I'm going into that fight, that if I could screw around, but that dude could kill me. Like even though I'm level 50 in like a level 10 stage, that dude could still kill me. I enjoy that in a video game a lot more than I like in a tabletop, because again, the death means I at most have to just load up my save file and maybe spend like 30 minutes running back to the fight or whatever. But I enjoy that because those are something you can quickly get back to, restart the fight, learn from your mistakes, or maybe not be so cocky this time and actually win the fight. And I enjoy that. So I enjoy kind of a heavier lethality in my video games.
Why you button mashing, bro?
But for tabletops, I'm gonna be in between Obs and Tets on this one.
Yeah.
I like it lethal, but not so much that even a slight gust of wind is lethal.
Yeah, and here's one thing I'll say about like the tabletop games that I played in. I want like at least in like with my local group. I mean, we've had like a few games where characters died through the middle of the game. They never like really feel like they affect the characters or the story in a meaningful way, like from my experience. And I want to see like one time where with my local group that happens, and it's like a really big deal that one of the like it weighs heavily on like the other PCs or like some of the NPCs or stuff. It has happened like in the first game I ever played of L5R. It happened like somewhat for a little bit, but the game like ended like 2 sessions. Just happened to like be over 2 sessions after the character died, so it wasn't like a lasting like grand like arc for some of the characters or the story or anything. I'm gonna see that happen like at least once in a game I play. I think
that would be, yeah, I get what you're saying. It's really nice to know that when somebody dies in a game, that they at least have a lasting consequence on the people who were there. There was a relationship. You lost somebody important. It should have an impact. So,
yep, I agree with you there. So,
good answers, guys. Very good answers.
Good topic, man. It's glad you came back with the.
I know.
With the good
came
stuff.
Back strong. I just needed 2 weeks off so that I could think of a really good topic.
That's
now
all
I'm gonna take 2 more weeks off.
You're gonna come back with some real gold.
Yeah, that's my real goal along. We just to take 2 weeks off so I could come back with a solid topic.